With that, let's move over to the tight ends here, and a quick mention on Ravens tight end Isaiah Likely, who's filling in, of course, for Mark Andrews. Yes, Baltimore is on the bye. Likely is available in 48% of leagues. And listen, 4 catches, 40 yards against the Chargers in Week 12. He had the 6 targets. We know how much of a barren wasteland the position can be, Matthew. And Likely, when Andrews is out, is a viable kind of streaming tight end at most.
Yeah, I mean, they were looking for him often on Sunday night, which was nice. Again, the whole Ravens offense just struggled, but it was nice to see Likely getting a decent amount of the targets in a game in which they didn't throw that much. He did have a 20% target share. Didn't really show up in the box score, but yes, given the position, given the role that Andrews has in that offense, we talked about wanting to replace him with Flowers and Mitchell and OBJ, but Likely as a tight end, and he's certainly, he would be my number one if you didn't need a tight end this week, and he's still out there in over 50% of leagues. Again, they're on a bye this week. But I would say this, Pat Freiermuth, welcome back.
Yes.
Still, he's probably the number one waiver pickup across all positions this week.
Yeah.
Because he's actually viable. He's a top 10 guy and it's not just a bye week fill-in. I expect this to be the case for the rest of the season. 34% target share. You saw the 11 targets against the Bengals. He was targeted on almost 50% of his routes. And part of it, listen, the Bengals really struggle against, everything, but specifically tight ends. So they took advantage of that. But we talked about this. Pickett looked better. Freiermuth looked like the guy he was drafted to be, not the guy we've seen at the beginning of the season. And you like this matchup against the Cardinals, as over the last 4 weeks, Arizona, a bottom 10 defense in terms of most fantasy points allowed to opposing tight ends. He's my number one pickup overall this week if you need somebody to play the rest of the season, given how bad tight end is.
Yep, and in our show league, some people built their teams around Tirico or Christian McCaffrey. I built mine around Pat Freiermuth, so I was very happy to see him.
And Najee Harris.
Unfortunately, I benched Pat Freiermuth this week for Jake Ferguson, but he will be very much in my lineup this coming week. He's had 60-plus receptions each of the first 2 seasons. He's end of the second round pick, and he had 7 touchdowns his first. He's got talent, and it's Pickett in this new offense. And here's the thing: is you might think, all right, the Bengals have a terrible defense. This isn't real. The Steelers have an incredibly easy schedule. They play terrible defenses the rest of the way too. So I think that Freiermuth is the thing.
Once nicknamed Baby Gronk, Pat Freiermuth.
Once nicknamed
back in his college days.
Same.
Yeah, makes sense. Our next one, Cade Otton. Bucks tight end Cade Otton. He's got the Panthers. He's available in 71% of leagues. Week 12 against the Colts, 4 targets, 4 catches, 45 yards. And, when you look at this, Matthew, once again, with the bye weeks, you might be a little desperate, and Otton might bring you consistency if he can get you 8 or 9 points.
And that's what it is. 45 receptions in 3 of the past 4, 4 more receptions in 5 of the past 6. Baker's using him. It's a very narrow target tree in Tampa Bay. It's Evans, it's Godwin, it's Rashad White out of the backfield, and now Cade Otton starting to get involved. They play the Panthers this week and then at Atlanta, so at Green Bay, Jacksonville. Some nice defenses in there, but nothing that totally scares you. But you're right. He is, if you need 9 points from your tight end, that's Cade Otton.
Jay, our next one, Gerald Everett. The key with him is, besides being available in almost 80% of leagues, he's caught 3 touchdowns in the last 5 games for the Chargers.
Yep, just another touchdown-dependent tight end. But he did play his most snap percentage since Week 6. There's just not many other people on this offense right now in the passing game. So by that, I think you can do worse than Gerald Everett.
Juwan Johnson of the Saints, he's available in 91% of leagues. We talked about how the Lions' defense has struggled. That's what's on tap for the Saints. We also talked about the injuries to Olave and Shaheed here, Matthew. Maybe a bump in snaps and targets for Juwan Johnson.
He got 7 targets in Week 12. It's a nice match with the Lions, who have allowed 5 touchdowns to tight ends, tied for 6th most in the NFL. Juwan Johnson, TikTok star and potentially fantasy savior in Week 13. Savior being used in quotes, usable.
Our last tight end, Jay, Chig Okonkwo against the Colts, available in 74% of leagues. Only 4 catches for 45 yards, but kind of fits that Cade Otton mold of can you get 8 or 9 points from him.
Yeah, and 45 yards, unfortunately, was a season high for Chig Okonkwo. Now, he's been close to bigger plays. He's just kind of gone through the hands, and a lot of it's been on him. But I do think there is some upside against an Indy secondary that doesn't really scare you.
Their Colts are bottom 10 in terms of both receptions and yards allowed to opposing tight ends. And so, similar to Cade Otton, it's he's 9 points with a shot at a touchdown. And that's, sometimes when you're swimming in these brutal tight end waters, that's all you can hope for.
All right, we move over to quarterbacks on your waivers, and we start with Baker Mayfield, who's had a lot to say after this weekend, and most notably, he talked about playing through an ankle injury. Here's Baker Mayfield.
He's been banged up.
At first, it didn't feel very good. Then it kind of eased up as the game went on. But yeah, once the adrenaline wears down, it's there.
You're rolling out and everything on it too.
Yeah, adrenaline and it's a hell of a drug.
Baker Mayfield on, not really making excuses or anything right there. He's available in only 48% of leagues, and Todd Bowles also commented on Baker's status that he has a sore ankle. We'll see how he's feeling during the week, but the MRI came out negative, so that's a good thing.
It is. He's a gamer.
He's gonna
Baker
play.
Mayfield's a gamer, and I will tell you, I've interviewed the guy. If you met him, you'd like him. If you met, I know the press likes to beat him up sometimes, but I think his teammates like him as well. He's had multiple touchdown passes in 4 of the past 5 games. Fantasy managers starting to like him as well. Panthers bottom 3 in the NFL in terms of pressure rate this season. Should be a clean pocket for maybe a less than mobile Baker Mayfield. He's available in about 48% of leagues, so just right there on the cusp. But, if you need a tight end, he'd be my favorite streamer this week as well. I noticed this, Jay, when Connor throws to sound, so you can't see this for people that are watching, but we have a TV underneath the camera that's looking at us. And so we will watch back what you guys see so that we know when we should talk. And Connor does this thing where he sort of leans forward into sound. And that's what he did yesterday. It's like he was doing his thing and he started leaning forward, and you're like,
lean.
it's a little bit of a lean.
Yes.
And so
that actually got banned along with when Kenny Pickett did the fake slide. That was also banned.
No
you
leaning?
can't do that. Yeah, you can't
All right,
do that.
I'll cut it out.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm guilty at this point. There's no hope for me being innocent on this one.
So
don't know why.
So I would say that Baker Mayfield would be my guy if you just need somebody this week. But if I'm looking rest of the season, I think Jordan Love, who's had 3 straight games with multiple touchdown passes, back-to-back games with 20 more fantasy points, and he's getting you some points with his legs, Jay, as well.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
he is. And he's quarterback 9 on the season, and he's getting better and better, and he's got an easy schedule the rest of the way. So I think he is potentially just a top 10 guy going forward. Kenny Pickett, I don't think is a top 10 guy going forward, but he does have a favorable schedule, and he clearly looks a lot better in this new offense. And then Derek Carr, I can't get too excited about Derek Carr, Matthew, not with all his weapons gone, but he does have a favorable matchup.
And he's thrown for 300 yards in 4 of the past 5 full games. Detroit allows a touchdown pass at the second highest rate over the last month as well. So in a game in which they're likely trailing and a bit of a shootout, maybe it's some dump offs to Alvin Kamara that he runs into the end zone.
If you
He's
need
fourth on that list for a reason.
If you need a defense to stream, take a look at the Jaguars against the Bengals, which will be led by Jake Browning again, available in 67% of leagues. The Falcons against the Tim Boyle-led Jets, 90% available. And the Chargers defense, don't laugh, they have whoever is playing quarterback for the Patriots, 84% available. And if you need to pick somebody up that we talked about today, you probably have to make a tough decision with the droppables. Here's some droppable players, some close calls: Josh Dobbs, Geno Smith. At running back, Khalil Herbert, Dameon Pierce, Deontay Foreman. At wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy, Tyler Boyd, the injured Rashid Shaheed. And at tight end, Kyle Pitts and Mark Andrews.
Yeah, let's see with Josh Dobbs, and we'll get into that after the break in that game. But I would rather drop someone else just because he is QB 10 on the season. If he keeps his job, he's still viable, I think.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.